Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of the Burnout Avenue podcast. I'm Zach Patton. Alongside me is my co-host Josh Neal. Josh, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you doing?
Awesome. It was an amazing weekend of racing, especially Sunday. You know, the Indy Coca-Cola 600 doubleheader is always something to look forward to every year on this Memorial Day weekend. We just want to say we are so thankful, me and Josh, for all the soldiers and that laid down their life so we can do things like this. We are truly thankful. I just wanted to say that to start off the podcast. But yeah, awesome weekend of racing, Josh.
Yeah, I got up early, 9 o'clock Eastern time, started off with Monaco. Then, it transitioned into the Indy 500 and had an hour or two break, and then the Coca-Cola 600 to end the night. I would say definitely the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 were definitely the races to watch. The Monaco Grand Prix, it was kind of boring, if I do say so myself, but we'll get into all those here shortly. How was your Sunday?
Well, I went to church. Then the rest of it was mainly racing. I watched the Indy 500, and then I went and I took a break, and then I watched the Coca-Cola 600. So it's just about almost the same as yours, but I mean it was a day full of racing, so I can't complain.
I mean, if you got great racing going on all day long, you really can't complain, especially with what we've had to put up with this year. But so let's talk. I mean, this is a NASCAR podcast, but let's talk about the Indy 500. I'll talk about Monaco here in a second, but what was your thoughts on the Indy 500? Other than those last 10 laps, I mean, I would say that's probably hard to beat. I mean, that was probably some of the best racing you will see all year in any kind of racing platform.
The Indy 500 is just every year. It's just something else to watch. I mean, those cars are going so fast. They're just such a mechanical, just such a piece of engineering that's amazing to watch. I mean, they go around Indy at 200 and 220 miles an hour. Like, that's just something you can appreciate, even necessarily if the racing isn't good. But the racing was good too on top of it. And just to watch these guys wheel these cars around the track was just absolutely something. Just how the lines they used and the strategies they used to pass other cars. Like, one of the coolest things I saw was I can't remember who it was, but it was two cars. The car behind, um, I think he let off the gas. He let off. He's kind of on the he was kind of on the bumper going down the front stretch at Indy. Let off the gas to give him some little room. It allowed him enough room. He could get a run. And he could plan it perfect right when he started going down the back stretch. He could pass him because I mean it's very difficult to pass at Indy with those bankings at 200 miles an hour. So they have to plan. Sometimes they have to plan those passes perfectly, so they can happen on the front or back stretch. That's where you see most of the passing at. Because if you start trying to pass in those corners, I mean, you saw a few different wrecks at the Indy 500 due to trying to pass and just trying to put cars side by side and going into the corners. So I enjoyed it. I just enjoy watching. It's just good all around racing, and just the way they race is something else to watch.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Simon Pagenaud, it seemed like he was the class of the field all day. You had Joseph Newgarden come up there at times and challenge. You had Will Power, Ed Carpenter. I mean, some of the same names were up there most of the day. Um, I definitely think the last 10 laps made up for the previous however many laps there was. But, I mean, Pagenaud, he seemed like he just had the car to beat all day long. And it's good to see, if a car is that good. They came here and they just hit on the setup. He won the pole great race setup. I mean, Team Penske were just all over it. You had Newgarden finishing fourth. I'm not really familiar with all the Team Penske cars. I think Will Power in fifth. He's a Penske car.
Yeah,
But
you
I
got to give
mean,
it. You got to give it to Alexander Rossi too. He had a heck of a car. I mean, he had some troubles
uh,
throughout the day, but I mean, he was passing a lot of cars to recover from those incidents that he had.
yeah, I remember Dell Jr. saying, I mean, that was some of the most impressive racing he's ever seen because the way he was going in and out of traffic, making, I mean,
He
it
was
was impressive.
very aggressive driver. He was very aggressive, and that's what a lot of people I think enjoyed watching because he was so aggressive.
I mean, yeah, if you're aggressive at Indianapolis, we've seen it. I mean, how many casualties has that place taken? I mean, in our lifetime. I mean, I think I remember Dan Weldon. I think he
I think that was Las
crashed.
that was Las Vegas.
Oh well, I mean, it's just these cars. You know, you race that aggressive, and I know
IndyCar, yeah,
next.
IndyCar in general on oval tracks. That is just like you said. They're aggressive and it is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many injuries. I mean, and I think next year, I don't know if you've seen that or not. The new cockpit, they're going to have like a clear, uh, lack for a
It's
better
a
term,
canopy.
shell around it.
It's a canopy. I think they called it a canopy. I think Red Bull Racing or Red Bull Engineering actually designed it. So it's going to be like a canopy top. I think there's still going to be a hole in the opening, like above your helmet, but your face is going to be shielded. And it's dangerous too because them cars shred up. I mean, when they hit a wall or something, I mean, you've got parts going and it's open. I mean, it's open wheel racing, so those parts and pieces can fly up in your face and stuff. And luckily, you got a helmet, but I mean, your shield in front of you is not always going to stop a piece of metal when you're going 150 miles an hour. So yeah, the shield is definitely a step in the right direction for safety um, in the sport of IndyCar. But that last wreck there on lap, I guess 20, um, the guy said to hold on, let's see, who was it again? It was Graham Rahal, him and
Oh, it was
Bourdais. I
yeah,
think it's Bourdais.
yeah.
They was
It's
the one.
Bourdais.
Bourdais. They got into a wreck, and he said, and Graham Rahal said in the post race, excuse me for popping, post race interview, like he's like, I can't believe he did it, or something along those lines. And he's like, yeah, that's how doing stuff like that is how you get another driver killed. So those drivers, I think, understand the seriousness of the racing that goes on oval tracks.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly Bourdais just didn't give him any room. And he pinched him in the corner. I mean, that's just like you said, 200 miles per hour, and you get pinched in the corner and make contact like that. I think Bourdais' car even got. I mean,
Well,
it got up onto the wall at one point during that crash. So I mean, it's just crazy. And that's the Indy 500. It's like the Daytona 500 in NASCAR. It's the Indy 500. It's probably the most famous race in all of racing. One could argue. So see, I think there was 300,000 people or more there. I mean, it
that
was
place is packed,
yeah. I mean,
absolutely packed.
I think that's definitely on my bucket list to go to. I mean, it looked awesome to be there on the last 10 laps. I mean, you might not be able to see all of it from the track, but I mean, watching it on TV, watching those guys, I mean, it's just crazy. We talk about drafting in NASCAR now with this new package, but drafting there, it's like all those runs they get. And I think in IndyCar, it's against the rules to block, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, you basically have to let those guys get the run and pass you. And that's what makes it so entertaining because you had multiple guys just positioning themselves on the straightaway and back straightaway to pass. So, I mean, like I said, those last 10 laps, it was the best racing all day, I thought. It was better than Coke 600. The last 10 laps were the Monaco was a snooze fest, but I mean, maybe I should get into IndyCar more. I don't know if every race is like that because the Indy 500 is the only race I watch of IndyCar. I will admit to that. So I really don't know too much about the sport.
I think
I
that's
don't know
how
if
it is. That's how it is with a lot of places. I mean,
so. I mean, I don't.
a lot of people. I mean, excuse me, a lot of that sport. I mean, a lot of people watch the Indy 500, but I don't know of how much of the rest of the season that they actually watch.
Do you keep up with it regularly?
No, I do not keep up with it regularly, but I would keep up with it when they go to the Indy 500, just because it's such good racing and it's entertaining to watch. But there's no other. I don't think there's any other track that they go to of that stature, like where they're reaching those speeds. I mean,
I would say Pocono might get close to that.
yeah, I
But I
think
think I'm
maybe.
not really familiar with the rest of the schedule.
But yeah, it was good. It was a good race overall. I enjoyed watching it, and I think I don't know what more you could ask for an Indy 500. And I just like you said, the whole no blocking thing. I find interesting. Like you watch them, they come off turn 4 and they immediately like dive to the bottom, just like try to break the draft of that person behind them, so they don't get a good draft to pass them. I think that's just part of the interesting strategy that plays into
Yeah.
it.
I mean, if you did block, can you imagine? I would definitely think that would probably cause a life-threatening crash. So, I
Yeah.
mean, guess you really have no choice.
Yeah, it may be
But
a
that
safety
brings
thing.
so I just wanted to bring this up. Just get your thoughts. If so, when you're winning a race, do you really want to drink milk? And do you really want milk to go all over you? I mean, it's milk. Most of them have Gatorade or water or
Well,
beer for that matter. But here we are with milk. I mean, obviously it's tradition and it's probably, I mean, no one's going to debate it. But I just thought about it. Do I really want milk to go down my fire suit, all over my face? I mean, obviously you won the Indy 500. I guess it doesn't really matter. But what would you
well,
do? I mean, are you
well.
complaining about the milk bath?
For one reason, I'm a fan of milk, so I'm not necessarily going to complain, but it is hot. But if I'm getting showered in milk, it's probably because I just won the Indy 500, and I'm not complaining one bit. They can pour if I win the Indy 500 and they have to pour milk all over me, I would do it in a heartbeat just to win the Indy 500. I have no problem with it at all. Now, on a normal occasion, for a normal
Mhm.
race, probably not, but for the Indy 500, like it's tradition. Like it's a tradition to get showered with the milk. Like to say you got showered with the milk means something.
You will get no debate from me on that. So I guess I'll go over Monaco since you didn't watch it. So Monaco Grand Prix, that place is beautiful. Definitely, that is a place where a lot of the rich, famous European athletes live. I know Novak Djokovic in tennis lives there. A lot of the Formula One drivers live there. A lot of Hall of Famers in just different sports live there. So, with that being said, Lewis Hamilton sat on the pole, and I'm not really sure how many laps he led, but he led pretty much every single lap that I kept up with. There was a caution or two, but I mean, it really didn't stop him from dominating. He had the car, he had the class of the field. Mercedes, that's another thing with Formula One. I don't know if you keep up with it too much, but Mercedes right now, there are two cars that they have, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Them two guys, they're the class of the field. I think Hamilton leads or Bottas, one of the two. They're both at the top two of the standings for the season, and it's not even close. I think Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel's second. But what Mercedes is doing in Formula One is just, for lack of a better term, they're just killing the competition. And I think for me as a race fan, if Mercedes wasn't dominating Formula One like they are, I might be interested in it because I'll be honest with you, I love road courses and NASCAR, and um, sometimes in IndyCar, like I said earlier, I might tune in, but Formula One, the technology in there is so much more advanced than NASCAR or IndyCar. It's just crazy, and there's also no Americans racing in the series right now. You have Haas Automation. They have a team, but I don't think they're really competing at the highest level. But anyway, back to the Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton dominated. He had Max Verstappen on his rear the last 20 to 30 laps, but Verstappen had a 5-second penalty for having not a clear shot out of the pit road, and he hit Bottas. So in Formula One, so you get a time penalty. You don't really get a drive-through or anything. You just get a time penalty. You don't really have to come in and serve that. So Verstappen while his car crossed the finish line second, he actually got a 5-second penalty and he finished fourth, which he missed out on the podium. That's definitely not what you want to see, especially whenever it's Red Bull and Mercedes already had, the winner. But man, Verstappen and Hamilton there, it did get interesting. Like you said, you knew that Verstappen, he had to get in front of Hamilton to get a 5 seconds to even have a chance to win, and that was just not going to happen. Also in IndyCar, I don't know if IndyCar does this or not, but in Formula One, you got the soft tire, the hard tire, the medium tire, and you got the rain tires and all that. I think Hamilton was on the hard or medium tire, and then Verstappen was on the hard tire. So I mean, just different strategies going on. And also, when them guys come in for pit stops, I mean, it literally takes them like 4 seconds to get on and off on and off their pit stop. So not the greatest race, I'll be honest with you. I'm sure a lot of the people listening right now, if you are, watched it and probably was not interested a bit either. But Lewis Hamilton, I think he's won 70-some Formula One races now. So, I mean, it's just crazy. He might go down as the best Formula One driver of all time. But he cleaned house. Like I said, I don't know how many of the 78 laps he led, but I guarantee it was at least 70, probably 75. But don't worry, Zach. You did not miss anything at all.
Well, that's good to hear. And I know for sure I did not miss the Coca-Cola 600. NASCAR's longest race. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad race, Josh.
No, for a lot of the crap that we have gave NASCAR with these mile and a halves, I mean, we said in the All-Star podcast this past week, but another mile and a half track that was a success, I will say. And obviously it had its dull moments in the first couple of stages, but at the first stage, let's talk about all the cautions. We had Joe Gibbs' cars blowing tires left and right, it seemed like. We sat the field up like we've been saying we wanted, and we got that beginning of the race, and I thought we wouldn't get done with racing till midnight Eastern time. But, I mean, the first 2 stages, they were all right, but, you had 4 stages this race. The last 2 stages, we seen some racing. We seen some pretenders go. It's like, we said last week, once the track goes from day to night, you have different cars, how they adapt to the conditions, and we definitely seen that with Truex.
Yeah, that's the name of the game when you come to these 9-track races. And when you start in the day, then the name of the game is keeping up with the changes of the track, and normally whoever keeps up with the changes of the track is normally the one that's least going to be near the top in contention for the win. It's not always the one who dominates the first stage or during those daylight hours.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen, I think Harvick was up there at the beginning. Kyle Busch was up there at the beginning. Kyle Busch, he probably had the second best car. He led quite a bit of laps here. Let's see how many laps. I had it pulled up here. Let's see. Kyle Busch led 79 laps, and Mark Truex led 116. So them two were definitely the class of the field. And like I kind of had some intel on, Gibbs. Just looking at some data and some times that Gibbs probably had the best couple of cars. Denny Hamlin probably had a top 4 car because he led at one point in this race. I mean, Eric Jones, he was the first guy. I think he wrecked on lap 6 maybe.
There's definitely something with Toyota setup this weekend. I don't know what they did, if they put too much camber or something in their setup or something. But that's why you saw Hamlin, Truex, Jones, De Benedetto. 4 different cars have right front tire problems. There was something that they did in their overall initial setup. Because that's just not. That's just strange for one manufacturer just to have right front tire problems and none of the other fields. So that has to indicate there was something in that overall Toyota setup, and it was just lucky that Kyle Busch didn't get a piece of it.
Well, the JTG cars, Preece and Chris Buescher had the same problem. So what I was thinking, I thought I seen someone say it was the tire pressures at the beginning of the race for Gibbs, and obviously the 95, which is basically a Gibbs affiliate. Um, I'm not really familiar how tire pressures,
Tire pressure works. You start them really low and they build up over time. So a lot of times you'll see tire pressures start really low.
so I'm
You'll
guessing
start
it
them
was
low.
low and they made some contact and then it was over from there. I'm not really sure how that went, but
Well, they may have put too much air in it, or they set too long and too much air built up, um, and with too much air being in the tire, the way they were wearing on the tire, maybe destroyed the sidewall or something too quick. I mean, tires are interesting. They're definitely an interesting subject, and there's a lot of science behind those that I don't know about, that I don't fully understand, and I know Josh, you probably don't fully understand those either.
yeah, I mean, we had Truex was leading. He hits the wall, and then the next thing you know, he blows a tire and had to send it on pit road. So I mean, it was definitely a night to remember for Gibbs because I mean, you had a complete 360. Started the night off horrible, and then you have two of your cars finish in the top three. So I mean, it was definitely a good night for them.
And I think we kind of got that ending that we were hoping for, don't you think? I mean, we got that 10-lap shootout. Well, I guess it was a 5-lap shootout, I guess.
Yeah, it
That's
was.
I mean, that's kind of what we were wanting. I mean, after we saw that, during the All-Star race, we wanted that shootout there at the end. That's because that's when we got some of the most exciting racing, and I don't think that last restart disappointed. I mean, it was exciting before the restart even happened. I mean, because you had David Reagan staying out on old tires, and then Ryan Newman, bold pit strategy to only take 2 tires.
I mean, yeah, and you've seen it when they dropped the green flag. You had Logano like right on Truex's rear, and Logano he hadn't done anything the whole night until the last 50 laps, and at one point I thought Logano was going to get by him and steal that, but Truex finally found himself out there. I mean, that restart was wild because Kyle Busch was finding himself back into the picture after having damage from that Kurt Busch wreck. Chris Buescher got himself back up there after a blown right front tire.
I mean,
I
Jimmy
mean, you just
Johnson
had
was up
mayhem.
there. I mean, Jimmy Johnson was up there in
Yeah.
the top few cars. I mean, top few rows. Um, and I mean, you can definitely thank Joe Logano for not going ahead and spinning Truex out and giving him and giving him a little push, because he was all over Mark Truex Jr. and I think he could have just spun him out. Um, in the blink of an eye. But I think that goes back to in our conversation we had a few episodes ago. Like, yes, these drivers both have wins. Is it really worth spinning someone else out when he could retaliate when it matters most, like during the chase? So I think you could have saw that out of Joey Logano, but I think he chose the right decision to just go ahead and let Martin
Yeah.
Truex have it or do his thing.
Them two, they've already had history. And Logano and Truex, I think Truex had some kind of charity event. Logano, I think it was last week, to be honest with you. Them two finally, I think, buried the hatchet at Truex's charity fashion show, I think is what it was. But yeah, I don't think Logano wanted to start that up again, especially with how dramatic Truex has been this year. We'll get to that later on. How about let's just spot a couple. Let's spot a couple of names that impressed us. I mean, you feel bad for David Reagan. He started first on that restart, and he wound up in 15th. I mean, it's crazy. He that far back. He was like, I think he was like 6th or 7th on the last lap. I think someone may have got into him on the last lap. Not really sure, but he was in the top 10.
Well,
David Reagan, he was 10th like the whole race. That was really impressive.
well, I thought there. I thought there at the ending, like when he was restarting on the front row, I'm like, David Reagan he has a small chance to win this race. I mean, it was unlikely, but I mean, there was a chance for him to win that race. And that would have been something else for David Reagan to win the Coca-Cola 600. I mean, I would have been
Hey, and
extremely
he
happy.
could have. He could have very well finished in the top 5, but like I said, I think someone got into him and sent him packing. And you obviously know with the when you lose your momentum in this package, you lose like 5 or 6 spots. So another guy, Corey LaJoy, 12. I mean team that team hasn't sniffed the top 50 all year, and they were in a pretty solid race. You know, they stayed on the lead lap most of the time and stayed out of trouble. 12th place for Corey LaJoy.
Well, then you had Ricky Stenhouse Jr. getting a top 5. I mean, that's not too bad of a deal right there.
I think he was second row. I'm pretty sure on that restart. He actually, I don't know if you caught this or not, but he was pissed off at Kyle Busch because Kyle Busch. I think did Kyle Busch send him spinning earlier on in the race? I think Kyle Busch got a big run off turn 4 earlier in the race, and he just basically he hit Stenhouse's back bumper, and Stenhouse went spinning. And he's like, I hope you all fix this up so I can go back up. But basically saying he wanted to get back up there so he could take Kyle Busch out. And I don't know if you caught this, though. On that last restart, I think it was 2 to go, he actually went for the kill. I think he tried to get under Kyle Busch, and he couldn't get there. He slid up the track. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I definitely would have loved seeing them two go at it.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. started, I think, 3 or 4 rows back. So I mean, he jumped up there. I mean, he put a gap in between him and I think between him, Elliott, and Johnson. Drove through the middle, and I mean, he was right behind Kyle Busch on his. He could have probably almost spun Kyle Busch out right there because he
went for him.
Yeah, he was on his bumper.
He went for him, and then he slid up the track. And
yeah.
But, I mean, Chris Buescher, 6th. I mean, after his right front gave out. I mean, Chris Buescher, we're going to have to start taking them kind of seriously for a top 15 every week. Definitely the 37 car has been great this year. You know, he hasn't had the finishes. He was top 10 at Bristol most of the race. He had problems there at the end. But 6th place finish with all the trouble they had, I'm going to give him credit. He does not – I mean, if he could arguably – if he had a better equipment, Chris Buescher could be competing for wins week in and week out. That's my opinion on that. Chase Elliott, a top 5 again. Joey Logano, like I said, he was nowhere to be found all night until the last 50 laps, and he pops up there. Alex Bowman did not finish 2nd.
Yep. And they were like, I saw a tweet, maybe you may have been the one that posted this, so you don't have to worry about Alex Bowman winning this race because he's going to finish 2nd.
Yeah, I mean, he finished 2nd on one of those stages. I think it might have been the 2nd or 3rd one. And they were giving him heck about that. Kevin Harvick, he didn't really have a good race. He was there at the beginning during the daylight, and his car just, for lack of a better term, was garbage during the night.
Well,
Eric Almirola.
Go ahead and keep talking about Eric
disappointing finish.
I'm sorry, continue.
No, you go. Eric Almirola ain't worth it.
I know he ain't worth it talking. I was a little disappointed in Kyle Larson. I was expecting a little bit more of the 42 team. I mean, I know they got involved in a wreck there, but I don't know. I expected a little more of them for this race. I don't know what you thought about that, but
he was like right there in 9th place all night until he started getting the problems. I definitely thought he would go up there and challenge for the win, but it just shows you that Gen 7 package that they had last week. Maybe that. I keep seeing people say that this package is not for Kyle Larson, and I can see that. And I've seen some idiot on Twitter say that he's starting to get concerned about Kyle Larson's season or career. I'm just a clown thinking that get worried about Kyle Larson. I mean, it's just some of the people that I follow on the Burnout Avenue Twitter account. I don't know, man. I just think they tweet stuff to get retweets and likes and people pissed at them. But I mean, it was definitely disappointing. How about, did you see, Austin Dillon, the contact he made on that wreck with Austin Dillon, that was crazy. It's lucky that Austin Dillon was able to make it back.
Yeah, no, it was very um it was very lucky that he was able to to make it back. I was slightly surprised.
Let's see, what else do we have?
Well, I just so we are speaking of Kevin Harvick, and didn't someone pick Kevin Harvick to win the race?
Uh, yeah, I
Can
think that was you, and then I
ooh.
think I will.
Yeah, so you discouraged me from picking Kevin Hart because that's who you was going to pick. And I was like, okay, I'll pick someone else. So then who did I end up picking to win the race? I know we didn't we didn't say it on the last episode, but we called and talked about this. So me and Josh called and talked about this on what was it? Saturday? Or no, it was Sunday
No, it was
morning.
Sunday. It was
Sunday
Sunday
morning,
before the.
right
Yeah, it was
before the
Sunday
Indy.
during the Indy car
Yeah,
race.
we called and talked, and he's like, we didn't put our picks in. Who are you picking to win the race? And I was like, well, I've been pretty busy this weekend. I haven't got to look over too many practice times, but I feel
I'll just go with my guy Martin Truex, who I pick every single week.
no. I said I think I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick. And he's like, of course, there you go, still in my pick. And I was like, okay, then if you can have Kevin Harvick, I'm just going to go with old reliable Martin Truex Jr. Dang, wasn't that a bad decision? Trying to deter me from picking Kevin, to deter me from picking Kevin Hart. And then you picked him. Yeah, that was isn't that who you picked? You're like, I'm going with Kevin Hart.
Yeah, I'm done trying to call Kevin Harvick's first win. I just don't think this package is puts them prime time. It's just not going to happen. Um, let's see. I think we're done recapping the race. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we went
are you
through
ready to get into your guy Martin Truex Jr.? Because I'm ready to let him have it.
yeah, you go ahead and let Mark Truex Jr. have it. I mean, he is a winning son of a gun, and I think you're just mad because he's winning. Okay,
I'm
he might say some silly things or some things that you might think is silly. He's a good racer. He's a championship racer.
no, I agree with all your stuff, and I'll be honest with you. I honestly thought, before this year, I was actually a Martin Truex Jr. sort of fan. I liked him as a guy. He just minded his own business. He obviously had a temper at times, but when he was in the '78 car, he was a respectable guy. I mean, obviously everyone complains, but this year, I don't know what's gotten into him, but when you go to JGR, apparently you just get this disease of where you want to whine and bitch about everything. And Martin Truex Jr. really turned me and a lot of people on Twitter the wrong way. And it's one thing to catch it on the radio; it's another thing to have Fox blatantly say it. And here's the thing: he was complaining about Chase Elliott coming off the corner right in front of him. And the funny thing is, Martin Truex Jr. did that to a bunch of people during the race. He, lack for better, a slide job, as Junior likes to call it. I mean, Martin Truex, where have you been? I mean, slide jobs are happening every week with this package. You have to, because passing is so hard. He was complaining about that. I mean, if I was Chase Elliott, I'd let him have it, because what Martin Truex Jr. do? He was a hypocrite. He did that plenty of times right after he was complaining about that. That's point number one. And he's done that multiple times this year. And he complains about the same stuff every week. It's just something new. I mean, it's just like beating a dead clock. I mean, a dead clock's right twice a day. And that's how he is. He has complained and complained and complained every single race. And it's just over the stupidest stuff. And this is not the old Martin Truex Jr. I don't care what you say. Martin Truex Jr., the older guy, or the younger Martin Truex Jr., was with the 78 crew and with the DEI boys back in the day, as you like to refer to. This is not the Martin Truex Jr. that we grew up liking. The Martin Truex Jr. we know this year whines and complains about every single thing. And they have the guts. And it's just not him. It's just not Martin Truex. I think it was his spotter. And I don't know if Cole Pern, his crew chief, and Truex asked this too, but they wanted David Reagan, who probably will not win a race this year and might not win a race the rest of his career, in the 38 car. for Front Row Motorsports. He was in first with 5 or 6 laps to go at the Coke 600. They had the balls to ask them to drop to the rear of the field. Can you believe that? I mean, just the lack of respect. That was like the shittiest thing you could do. If you're Mark Truex, if you're Cole Pern, and if you're Clayton Hughes, I think, his spotter, what are you thinking? I mean, I was already on Martin Truex Jr.'s case, but when I heard that, I'm like, we cannot let this guy get away with this. That team, that whole team, it's the same group of guys. They just moved over to the 19 team. They have lost my respect. Martin Truex Jr. has moved into my top 5 least likable guys in NASCAR just because of all the complaining, all the griping. And, oh, yeah, doesn't he have like 2 wins this year? I mean, life could be a whole lot worse, Martin Truex Jr. So just keep complaining, keep bitching about every little thing, and asking a guy to move to the rear of the field with 5 laps to go. Give me a fucking break.
Well, here's what I look at that. It wasn't he asked him to move to the rear. He asked him if he was moving to the rear, because
I mean,
no,
that's
listen.
even more stupid.
No, listen here. That's a pretty big deal, because if you look, Mark Truex Jr. was starting 3rd. If for some reason Reagan decided to move to the back, that puts Mark Truex Jr. on the front row. That's a whole different story for that 19 team. Because some people just stay out to try to get a point for leading the lap. So that's why Truex was just making sure that
David Reagan's 1 point for leading a lap is not going to make a difference for him making the playoff. I can promise you that.
I can't blame Truex's team for asking. I mean, because that's the difference. I mean, because he could be starting on the front row.
God.
That's the argument. I think that's a proper argument for why his team asked if 38 was moving to
David Reagan, top 10 all night long, stays out because they know this is the best chance for them to win. So, let's just keep our old tires on there. We've already got a top 10 car. I mean, how fucking stupid. I mean, I just can't argue on this because it's just a dumb argument. You're going to ask a guy that clearly he had plenty of chances to pit. I mean, I think they go around the track like 3 damn times. If he didn't come in the first 2 laps, why in the hell is he going to come in, the last lap before the green flag? I mean, it's just stupid. I might be giving Martin Truex a hard time, but I think this was more of his team than him. But I'm not going to let him slide on the, just complaining about everything. I mean, we see slide jobs every single week. Now try defending that. I mean, he wants to be a hypocrite. I mean, he wants to complain about this, but he goes right around and does it to them. It just doesn't make any sense.
He was disappointed because the slide job, it was not that late. It was not too late in the race. I mean, yes, slide job, you can do a slide job any time, but that's pretty aggressive racing for the stage at the point of the race they were at, because it wasn't the latest. Maybe that's what his disappointment was, because it was really early, and that was a little too bit of an aggressive move for that point of the race. There's no reason to go
week after week.
There is no reason to go in on lap 10 and try to do a slide job on someone just because of the fact that you can take out yourself, the car, and then everyone else behind you.
It was lap 10.
For lap 10. I'm saying, for example, it definitely wasn't the last 20 laps of the race or the last 30 or 40 or 50. It was pretty earlier on in the race, I'm pretty sure. Because I remember you telling me, Martin Truex Jr., he's a baby. Maybe that's what
he was. Maybe he's a big baby.
That's what he was dissatisfied about, because it was a little early, too early to be that aggressive racing.
If you check Twitter, the only people that are defending him is his fans. I promise you that. You look on Twitter, you'll NASCAR retweet to congratulate him, all that bull crap. You look at the comments. I'm not the only one saying he's a big baby. Every NASCAR fan, and I know you're a big Martin Truex Jr. fan, you don't want to say it, but he is your favorite race car driver since Dale Jr. left. That is your guy, and you've got your big Martin Truex Jr. flag and pom-poms every single week. I get that. But I'll tell you this. Us NASCAR fans that are not Martin Truex Jr. fans, like I said, before this year, Martin Truex Jr. was a likable guy for me, and I didn't have a problem with him. But ever since he got to JGR, he's turned into a Kyle Busch clone almost. Wants to complain about every little thing. I don't know if it's the Kyle Busch wearing on him, but he just needs to go back to the old Martin Truex Jr. I mean, he's just not a likable guy at this point for me.
You're just mad because he's winning. I think that's all it is.
I did not want to see him win. I'll be honest with you. I was just rooting so hard for Logano because I'm a Penske guy now. I was hoping Logano would just take him out because seeing Kyle Busch and Truex, I can't stand either one of them now. I just don't know. I'm an anti-Joe Gibbs.
You cannot put Kyle Busch and Martin Truex in the same category.
It's not. But Martin Truex, if he continues this, he's in the little baby territory. Kyle Busch is the big baby territory. But
I think that's as much as I can let you go. You can put him in the small baby. That's as far as I can let you go.
But if he continues, I mean, it's every single week now. He's complaining about something stupid.
Well, you gave us your rant on the finish. Tell me your rating for the race.
So, you know how I always put the rating up on Twitter? Some idiots put D. You know, them people are just the trolls of Twitter, you know, picking D because that obviously was not a D race.
What if it was me?
Well, then you're a troll.
Yeah, it wasn't. I rated it a B. That was what I rated it on our Twitter poll.
I could see that B+.
I do believe that's a pretty fair rating. So yes, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this episode. Reminder, go check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Burnout Avenue. Go to www.burnoutave.com to check out all of our blogs and all the cool stuff going on. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in this week, and we'll catch you next week after NASCAR goes to the Poconos.